Come on along. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat here on this absolutely cold, snowy, chilly morning. Kevin Brockway here to warm things up from CNHI Papers. Jim Coyle as well. Mike DeCourcy will join us. Chronic Hoosier. Plenty to talk about. Get to. You can send in all the topics you will like as well to give us something to talk about. Kevin, how you doing, man?
Good. I am watching the snow plows outside my development here, clearing off the tarmac or clearing off the parking lot here. So hopefully I'll be able to get out and about after spending all day yesterday inside on President's Day, binge watching the John Adams miniseries on HBO. That's how I spent my snow day yesterday.
Yeah, well, I can see the same thing, but I noticed a plow right before I came on. There was a spot open next to me, and they drove all the snow into that spot. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You just buried me. And so now I'm going to have to go out and dig out probably there. But it's just, man, this is one of those snowfalls we haven't had for a while here. When I was a kid, man, we got blasted. But you're a New Yorker from when you were a kid. You ever get any big blasters?
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, we used to have a little like toboggan hill that we used to go to all the time, and snow days in school. It was a lot of fun, and then my previous life in Florida for 30 years, I kind of missed it, but now it's interesting being back in this winter wonderland here in these last couple of weeks. We've certainly been blasted quite a bit.
I got a lot of friends in Texas. Of course, Charlie Miller was on with me yesterday. He's actually in Dallas, but it's what they're getting. It's crazy, man. I'm like, the temperatures are just boggling my mind. They were in zero. They were colder than we were. And I'm like, wow, it's pretty damn cold here. So that's a shocker to see. The game Wednesday, it should be no effect. Big Ten rules require that teams travel 24 hours in advance. Minnesota has to come here today. They're out clearing stuff off. Airports will be fine. By the time they get to traveling, that's going to be fine. The only problem, and then there's no fans, so you don't have to worry about that. The only people who are going to have an issue, the media that have to cover this game. The few media that have to go cover this game at 9 o'clock on a night when it's going to be at Arctic temperatures. And so I'm not looking forward to that. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm not looking forward to going to this game.
Well, I think that, what's interesting was I originally looked in the forecast and it said it was going to snow again on Wednesday night, but now it's saying it's going to be Thursday. So at least that'll be good that we don't have to deal with more kind of snow on the roadways Wednesday night coming to and back from that game. But it'll be, it's a big game, Jim, for Indiana coming off the Ohio State loss. Obviously, this is a big week. You've got two winnable games at home. Indiana, as we know, though, winnable games at home really don't mean anything because A, you don't have the crowd, and B, they haven't played well at home. So these are two games coming up that I think you really got to get in the win column because you don't want to set yourself up where you're below 500 heading into that final stretch where you got to play Michigan twice and at Rutgers and at Purdue, too bad matchup.
Well, I sent out a tweet a while back about, if they make this up, because I noticed on Nebraska's schedule, they have them making up a game by playing back-to-back, the same team back-to-back on the same, different days, but just playing back-to-back games. I'm like, oh, well, they're going to do that to Indiana with Michigan State. And I was thinking that Michigan was on the road because I had 15 schedules open at the same time staring at them. But Michigan is actually here. And Michigan State, I believe, I think both of those games, the ones that are still on the schedule, the ones that are still scheduled are here. So I'm like, wow, is Indiana going to get a double dip from one of those teams? Of course, Michigan State is the team you would want. Michigan is the team you would not, especially, and we're going to talk about them, how good they looked coming back after that COVID pause. But and Archie on his show last night, he didn't really give any indication of what's going to happen with makeups other than to say, hey, you may not, basically saying that you might not get all those games in. I don't know how many games Michigan actually missed over their break, 3-week break, but it had to be a substantial number. 6.
He also mentioned that first week in March, though, too, where they kind of have that gap from a Saturday to a Saturday game. I mean, you could theoretically during that week play Michigan and Michigan State back to back on like a Tuesday and a Wednesday that week. I mean, and just go from Ann Arbor to Michigan in one day. But I know that they've talked about that one scout thing with if you play teams back to back, you'd only get to scout them once. So you could have a scenario where maybe you play Michigan State back-to-back this week, Saturday and Sunday, and then the following week play Michigan back-to-back. I don't know if you'd have both games at Assembly Hall, or maybe you'd move one of those series to the road. I mean, that's a possibility too. Anything is really possible if they want to make up these games.
Well, you would think that by now we would know by now. And another reason I mentioned that about the Michigan game. The Michigan game is February 27th. Purdue, their next game after that is not until March 6th. So
that week.
You got that big gap in between those games too. So I'd be shocked if they don't double up on the Michigan game. I mean, it's right there for you. It's already on a Saturday, so it gives you a Sunday to add to that. That one is primed perfectly, but so is the Michigan State game, with the exception you have a Wednesday game in between there. So that wouldn't really work for that Michigan State game, I don't think. I mean, unless they force them to play a double up, like you said. I still see that happening, man. You got Rutgers on Wednesday, so you'd have to play Michigan State on Sunday and then come back on Wednesday, possibly. I could see them doing it, but I don't know. Are they going to give Indiana that many home games? That would be 4 home games there, but not that they matter.
Yeah, not this year with the crowds and with the way Indiana's playing at Assembly Hall. You got to wonder if it's really that much of an advantage with the way they're playing there. But it'll be it's going to be an interesting development to see how and if they make up these games. But if you really jam in, like say that first week of March, you're going to be jamming in a lot of games. But I mean, Michigan's situation is really crazy. They've only played 10 conference games, so they have 10 conference games to make up in 3 weeks. So that's going to be rapid fire for them, and you have to take into account that too, that they have to make up other games, not just the Indiana game as well. So it's going to be.
Well, not just that. You also have the Big Ten title that we're looking at, because they're at the top with that one loss. But if they have to play less games after that performance they gave yesterday, that's pretty impressive. I mean, not yesterday, but Sunday, rather, whenever it was.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, because they look like I expected them to look in that first half when they were down, 14? Man, you've been on COVID pause. And by that 2 weeks, they were not allowed to practice in that 2 weeks. So they weren't all thinking they're practicing getting better. They weren't. So to shake that off that quickly, that should scare the hell out of the rest of the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah. And Hunter Dickinson was just a beast in that game. I mean, he was just getting rebounds left and right, 7'1" guy. And his size, really makes an impact. It's interesting, too, because, you heard Archie talking about rebounding in the Ohio State game, and he talked about toughness. But let's not forget, Indiana was a much bigger team just size-wise last year, with Justin Smith at 6'7", Trace at 6'9", and Brunk at 6'11". Right now, you've got Trace at 6'9", Brunk at 6'8", and 3 guards. I mean, I think some of the rebounding issues just has to do with sheer size and some of the matchups they're going against. And it's not going to get any easier against a team like Michigan that brings in the 7'1" kid.
Absolutely. We'll see, man. The snow fell wherever you are. Hope you are safe and just hunkered down. There's not a lot to do. What is there to do? It's just cold as it could be. Snow all over the place. I wish we had more basketball to watch. There was not a lot to check out last night. I was just trying to find something. The Archie Miller radio show was on, of course. We're going to talk about that later on. Some of the things he talked about in that, but just other things that are going on out in the sports world, man. I'm waiting for some of these bigger games to come back around. Some of these Big 12 games that we're going to be having this week. I need to pop over to the schedule on that. We get over on that, but
Florida State, beat Virginia. That was a big win for them, and that's That's one you got to
Florida
look
State,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's one you got to look back on if you're Indiana and say, God, if you had that in the win column, you'd be in a little bit better shape heading down the stretch here. That was one of those overtime games that you kind of wish you had back. That in the Wisconsin game. But with overtime games, it's tricky. You think about it. I mean, they could have lost to Penn State and Northwestern, which would have been tragic, right? Had they lost one of those two games, that would have been a real loss on their schedule. But they didn't pull out the overtime games. If they would have pulled out one or two more of these overtime games, they'd be in a little bit of a better shape resume-wise. But as it stands right now, I mean, I think what Indiana has in front of it in terms of these last 7 games, you got to go 4-3. Find a way to go 4-3, get to 10 conference wins, and that's not going to be easy. But maybe possible if you beat Michigan State twice and you beat Rutgers on the road. I just don't see you beating Michigan either game.
I don't see anybody beating Michigan in the Big Ten right now unless you get lucky. I mean, or they have a bad night. Of course, that can happen because Wisconsin's a solid team, and they were at home and they had a lead. It's rare. You don't see Wisconsin give up 14-point leads at home. On top of that, they're more of they're a pretty a solid team mentally. They give up 14-point leads. And for Michigan to just, they won going away, melted that and just went on.
Well, it was kind of a tight game with 5 minutes to go, but they made every shot, every play down the stretch they made. And that's how they kind of pulled away. I still thought it was fairly tight in the second half, but I thought in the winning time, that's what you like to call it, the final 5 minutes, they made every shot, they got every rebound, they made every play down the stretch in that game. And I think that's, what more talented teams do. A lot of times in close games, if you come up short, it's a sign of a team just not being ready yet. I mean, I think we saw that with Indiana against Illinois. When Illinois needed to make the big play at the end of regulation in overtime, whether it was a defensive play or a shot or get to the foul line, they did it. And Indiana did not do it.
Some of the games that are tonight, Arkansas, interesting team, number 24 in the country now. Justin Smith, of course, transferred there. They're a definitive tourney team, I would say, out of the SEC now. They're 16-5, they're 8-4 in their league. They're in. They're pretty much guaranteed at this point.
I ranked them 20 this week. I like, they had a nice win against Missouri, who was a ranked team. And I texted my buddy Bob Holt, who covers the Hoggies down there for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and told him that, I was ranking them this week. And you got like Eric Musselman is a good coach. You saw he came in here last year at Assembly Hall. They beat Indiana. So he's done a really nice job there they've got a lot of 3-point shooting, as you know, and some of Mike Anderson's recruits that have held over there are athletic and get up and down the floor. And, Florida's been on a long pause too. They haven't played in a while. They've been off for 3 games. So they may have a little rust going into that game as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty good matchup, I guess. Kind of even Steven there in the SEC. Another SEC game involves Missouri. I don't know how they're still ranked. I think didn't they just lose to Arkansas, I believe, in the last game?
They lost
they're
playing too. Yeah.
That's a bad loss there. They're at Tom Crean, Georgia.
Gotta hit a break soon.
How about Georgia giving up a $115 to Alabama the other day? Tom Crean,
set a points record. Nate Oates and Alabama set a all-time points record in his first year there. Hey, we got to hit a break. That's right. We got Mike DeCourcy coming up today. Chronic Hoosiers with us. Plenty to get to. Glad you listened to us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. % sales have been going on right now. You can get 0% APR financing at Andy Moore Honda door. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. We'll be back with more from the ski club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. And right now, Andy Moore.
Jalen Johnson quitting also. That's been a big story at Duke.
That's something I've got to talk about. I gotta go check. I felt like a code burst all of a sudden, like a door came open. I'm like, what the hell? Woo.
I'm going to try to play all snow and winter themed songs for today.
Why not? You could play the Bangles' Hazy Shade of Winter.
I'm doing Snow Hey-O by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah. Hey, oh, listen what I say. Oh, kind of snow. I say. Oh, yeah. That's good stuff. Hazy Shade of Winter, that's one of the few songs where the cover is better than the original. The Bangles is better than Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's got a great intro to it.
Yeah, we still have ice where I am. We still have like 2 inches of ice, and we got snow on top of that, which actually made it easier to drive on because then you had something to grip on. And then the snowplow came through, and the big Zamboni just took all the snow off right down to ice again. So now the roads are just as slick as they were.
It's been a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, we got about 7 inches last night on top of the 6 or whatever we already had.
Well, you see what's going on in Texas, right, with the power grid? Like, people are like,
They're not used to that down there, man.
Yeah, but they have a bad power grid there, so people are like not having heat and stuff, and it's like 40 degrees in some of these places. It's terrible.
What do you mean they have a bad power grid?
I mean, they have like their power grid is not like connected to the rest of the country. They have like an independent power
Bad
grid,
infrastructure.
so they have to do like rolling blackouts for power there.
They have a bad infrastructure.
Yeah. A nightmare.
Hey, what did you have this week? Pieces, stuff?
Me?
Yeah.
What did I have? That's a good question. Last week I did the best big man. Just did a lot. No, I just did a lot of stuff on the Ohio State game and everything, and
Hey, Mikey D, how are you, sir?
kind of a mundane
I
period.
am well, Jim. How are you?
I am warm and not out in the
Visit
snow.
to French Lick, West Baden.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Listen what I say.
Welcome back to the snowy ski slopes at Eagle Point Studios here in Bloomington, brought to you by the great folks of Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Bringing you now the great Mike DeCourcy. Michael, how are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
Great. You seem like someone who used to ski once upon a time.
That I did. I believe I skied twice in my life. So
Twice.
I guess technically I have skied once upon a time.
Kevin, you ever skied?
Yeah, in New York I used to do a little skiing, but I got over that
down
really
Brooklyn?
quick.
What down
It's
Flatbush?
upstate New York near Albany, but I hit a few moguls, screwed up my knee, and that was the end of my skiing career.
Oh man, well, there's plenty to be had now out there right now. But we got the great Mike DeCourcy with us. Mike, one of the things that's popped up this week, these opt-out, quote unquote opt-outs, but they're opt-outs anymore at this point. I mean, the kids are just quitting off of teams that they don't want to play anymore. The kid from Duke, the latest, but it's a weird year, but still, I mean, it seems like they're just seeing now. It's not as much as it was in football, it seems, but it's a weird to see that happening. But I guess if you're a true talent, maybe it's valid to not put yourself out there in that injury position. I don't know.
That part of it is just complete nonsense. Look, if he's not healthy enough to continue competing for the Blue Devils, that's fine. But we have seen players, injured players, on many occasions finish their seasons with the team. They just continue to go through rehab and help support in whatever way they want. I mean, he was healthy enough to play the last 2 games, just didn't play a lot. So I don't think that it comes down to that at all. And the idea that you're somehow less at risk if you're training than you're competing it's just a preposterous conceit that I can't believe how many people in our business buy into that. It's complete and utter nonsense. There is no certainty that one is not going to be injured unless one completely withdraws from physical activity. Any physical activity can injure you if it's done improperly. And certainly the kind of physical activity that one must undertake in order to prepare for the NBA draft, it certainly has the capacity to injure you. That doesn't mean that you are going to be injured. Just as we look, there are I don't know, on any given weeknight there are 30 or 40 Division I basketball games, maybe. On a weekend, on a Saturday, there are usually 100 or more. How many guys are getting hurt? How many guys are getting seriously hurt enough so that they can't continue playing on a long-term basis, on a near-term basis, let alone a long-term basis? That with 8 kids per team involved in 100 games, how many guys is that? That's 8 times. That's 1,600 kids on a Saturday. How many of them are being injured to the point where their future playing the game is in jeopardy? It almost never happens. You know, I sometimes point out, and it really hits home in this circumstance. When one talks about the idea that, well, I am protecting myself against an injury that could impair my future. Of all the people that you have known whose careers have been ruined or ended by injuries, how many of them can you think of in the game of basketball? We're not talking football here because that's a different discussion. But in the game of basketball, how many can you think of that happened on in-game injuries? That I'm not talking about maybe cost you a draft spot, but I'm talking about that severely impaired you. I can't think of almost any. I mean, very few. But I can think of 2 just in Duke's program that happened in motor vehicle accidents. Bobby Hurley's NBA career was ruined by an automobile accident because somebody drove on the wrong side of the road or something like that. I don't remember the exact particulars, but it wasn't Bob who was at fault. His NBA career was ruined. He was going to be a terrific NBA point guard for a dozen years. I think he ended up playing 2 or 3 and never having an impact at the level he was capable of. Jay Williams was the second player taken in the draft. He played, I believe, 1 full season, then had a motorcycle accident and never played at that level again. So you can't. So you're going to tell me that someone's going to give up driving or riding in a car now because of the possibility that might happen, that might impact their future draft prospects? That's nonsense. It's something that people in our business buy too easily. Look, if you don't want to play anymore, that's up to you. If you don't like your coach or you don't like your situation or you don't think you're playing enough, that's up to you. I can't make you. But don't sit here and tell me that they're protecting their futures or some nonsense like that.
I agree. And what does that say to the GMs of the NBA? Because they look at this stuff. I would think they would look at this type of thing because it's quitting on your team in essence, and that's something that I think that the character has become more and more important in any sports league where they're going. But it's also a culture that we're establishing, and it's scary. I mean, I want to get through this COVID, but I'm tired of it being used as a catch-all for so many things. But you're right, and I don't know why it's acceptable to quit. It's like if you criticize a kid in college, you're a bad person. But it's definitely just quitting on a team, and then you've got the teammates who have struggled, and all the guys that have gone through all this stuff that you've have to gone through these protocols this year. Man, to quit on them, you're also letting a lot of guys down, I think.
Look, if like I said, I do believe that if you're going to play team sports, there would seem to be some element of team involved in that. I mean, like if you're a tennis player and you don't want to play, the only person that's affected by that is you. If you're a golfer, the only you and maybe your caddy. But if you're a basketball player, there are another 11 or 12 players on your team, and there are coaches that are involved in your program. So I don't think that it's that it's as simple as this is what's best for me. And you're obviously impacting others, but I haven't seen anyone present any reason to believe that this is what's best for anybody. Like what does the player gain out of ceasing to compete now? With literally, gosh, this is the 16th. So, and in Duke season, they're not going to play in the NCAA tournament unless they pull off a miracle in the ACC tournament. So he's got less than a month of actual competition left. There is nothing to be gained in those 3 weeks that could, that remaining in competition prevents him from gaining. I completely reject anybody who says this is somehow better for him. It's maybe what he prefers because he's not happy, and that's fine. But say that. Say I'm not playing enough, so I'm not going to continue to be on this team where I'm not playing enough. If you want to say that, that's at least you're honest. But the idea that you're inventing this concept where you're somehow at greater risk in playing against, I don't know, Virginia Tech than you are at going and playing in some pickup game somewhere, it's just preposterous. I'm tired of that, of those sorts of fantasies being manufactured and people in our business not being more critically analytical of those kinds of comments being made.
Mike, what about the notion about finishing with what you start? And like I remember, my first year on the Florida beat, the Christian Dreyer situation was a huge fiasco, and he actually left in January, and he left to go to another European team. And I remember it was roundly criticized. And does it work both ways? Because I'm having a lively debate now with someone on Twitter about Steve Spurrier. And in my opinion, Steve Spurrier quit on the Gamecocks on that last year. They're trying to say he retired in October. No, it was the middle of the season. You finish what you start. If you commit to the beginning of the season, you see it through. What's your opinion on it?
Well, I think that there is something to be said for that you do, that there's an established season and that seeing it through has been the standard in team sports. Team sports have been around for now about 150 years, give or take. They're organized team sports certainly for a good 140 years since baseball started in the 1880s, 1890s. So, and the standard has always been that if you begin a season, the ideal thing is to see it through. So I think there's a lot of validity to that. Again, in a circumstance like this, if you're not happy, I'm not saying continue to keep yourself in a situation where you're not happy. I'm not saying that you can't do that you can't walk away from that. I'm just saying be honest about it. Don't try to
or walk away at the end of the season, transfer. That's fine,
Well, yeah, or even like I said, even now, I don't have a problem with him walking away now. I really don't. I mean, I don't think it's ideal, and certainly, but I don't like the manufactured, the idea that you have to manufacture this alternative reality where you're somehow safer because you're not competing, because that is absolutely untrue. There is no evidence that you are at greater risk in competition than you are in training. There's none.
Well, actually, they're not even always giving that excuse. There are a lot of times they're just saying they're going to just prepare for the NBA draft. So they're in essence saying, hey, no, I'm quitting on you guys. I'm going to focus on my future. So they are just sometimes basically saying I'm quitting. Because anytime you hear that, I'm just going to focus on he's going to focus on the draft. That's I'm quitting. I'm turning my sights elsewhere. So they're sometimes admitting that that's exactly what they're doing, and I just can't. I'm not ever been an elite athlete that's in a position where I had a potential of a pro career. So I've never been in that situation, but I just can't imagine the times that I have man, it's just that the lure of the competition was always the lure. It was always why I was doing whatever it was that I was doing. And I would hope that they would still have that love at the college level, wherever they are. But sometimes there's other people in their ears. We got to remember that these kids get a lot of people in their ears, especially these elite athletes.
Jim, that's where it begins and ends. I mean, let's be honest. Jalen Johnson didn't wake up one day and say, I'm probably better off not competing. Somebody had to sell the idea that that your prospects for the NBA draft are being negatively impacted because you're playing 12 minutes a game.
And it's people who have their own interest in heart, I'm assuming, Mike.
Well, I mean, I think that's certainly again the root of it. But I think the NBA has to make the decision about this. If you don't value guys who show up every day and who continue to compete through difficult circumstances and who say, man, if I'm playing 12 minutes a game and I know I'm better than that guy, then there must be something I'm not doing right. So what is that? Coach, what am I not doing? What can I do to get those 20 minutes back that my talent says I should be getting? And I don't mean 20 total. I mean he should be playing 32 minutes a game based on his talent on a team like Duke. And so I would say that would be something that if I'm a professional team, I would value. And I really honestly believe that the most successful teams do value that. And that the least successful teams continue to engage in this fantasy that, well, he's so talented, we can bring it out of him. And that's how you wind up being in the lottery every year for 20 years.
Another question I have is, we've seen teams like Duke, Kentucky, they're struggling, and plenty of others mightily. But why is this UK team struggling when they had the top recruiting class, which they've always had? I know these guys are not. This is not the DeMarcus Cousins and John Walls and Karl Anthony Towns and all those Anthony Davises, but it still was the top recruiting class apparently. And they're nowhere close to competing. These guys are all great players and probably going to go on to have good careers, but right now it's just a jumbled mess, and it's just ironic that the top recruiting class can look that poorly.
First thing I would say is that it begins with the methodology of how top recruiting classes are gathered or how they are assessed. Okay, like if you asked. There was a scout, and I don't know if you got a chance to read any of the pieces that were written in the last week about a man named Tom Konchowski. We just lost Tom about a week ago to cancer.
Great scout.
Age 74. One of the great gentlemen in the history of the game of basketball. Yes, a tremendous scout. And when Tom would be involved, and Tom was an absolute authority on basketball going back to the mid-'60s. So when Tom was asked, what was the greatest recruiting class in the history of college basketball? Was it these 5 guys? Was it these 4 guys? Was it these 6 guys that are 5 stars or whatever? Was it John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Bledsoe, et cetera? And he would say the greatest recruiting class in the history of basketball was Lou Alcindor at the time, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It didn't matter who came with him. It didn't matter who he was good enough to change your team on his own. And if LeBron had played in college, he would be in the discussion, but he didn't. So that's that you look at this Kentucky recruiting class, and they have this guy who's a 5-star, and this guy's a 5-star, and this guy's a 5-star. They don't have any game changers. BJ Boston, Brandon Boston, was very highly regarded in terms of that class. I mean, he is going to be a fine player. I believe if he sticks with it. I think if he goes into the NBA draft after this year, that he'll probably not be a successful pro. But I do think that if he sticks with his development, he can be a terrific player. He has made progress through the course of this year. He has not given up on this season when he has every reason to. He and a lot of his teammates do, because they aren't just unsuccessful, they're frustratingly unsuccessful because they're losing by 1, 2, 4, 3. They found just about every way to lose a game, but they've continued to battle. And so, but they don't have anybody that you put on that floor and like everybody's like, oh man, what do we do now? How do we stop this guy? And they did that when they had John Wall, and they did that when they had Anthony Davis, and even to an extent when they had De'Aaron Fox. But they don't have that guy now. It's just a lot of very good talents who might eventually become very, very good players if they stick with their development. And that's where people get caught up in this idea. Well, it's the number one recruiting class, so therefore they must be transformative. And I'll admit I did not see as much of the 2020 class as I would have liked. So I believed that they must, that they might be transformative. I've seen, I saw the 2019 class a lot and knew they weren't transformative as a group nationally. This 2020 class has been even more disappointing than 2019 has. And I think it's a bad trend for basketball. I don't know whether that's a short-term deal, but I can't remember the last time we had two classes have this little impact on college basketball in consecutive seasons. It's been years and years and years since we've had two classes with this little impact. I hear people talking about at Kansas how their recruiting's been affected because they're under this investigation. And my response is that, okay, who nationally would you have wanted to get that you think could change your situation? There's nobody out there. There's Evan Mobley. You weren't getting him because SC decided that they wanted they would hire his father. And Cade Cunningham, you weren't getting him because Oklahoma State decided to hire his brother. And I'm not casting aspersions about doing that. If that's the way you want to, if you want to build your staff that way, it's your staff. Do it however you want. But you weren't getting those two guys, and those two and Hunter Dickinson are really the only transformative freshmen in college basketball this year. And Hunter Dickinson was a number 43 player in his class. So literally, in a lot of ways, anybody could have had him.
Well, that brings up another point, Mike, and a good one of that is Oklahoma State. They're trying to basically appeal their way into the tournament because they know that their butt's in a ringer, and they've got Cade Cunningham, and they want to get him into the tournament. And so they're trying to appeal through all this stuff. They were part of the FBI investigation. Your thoughts on what they're doing and if they should be allowed to play in the tournament, because if it ends up now, what were they going to get punished 2-3 years from now, virtually where everybody will not have been involved, or they'll end up nothing happening because they'll get into that situation. But it's a weird situation.
Well, the first thing to understand is that nobody who was involved in that circumstance is involved any longer. So, right. Whether they punish this team or next year's team or the year after or whatever, no one who was involved in that circumstance is any longer there. So I when it happened, I thought that the penalty was an overreach. I didn't think that what happened at Oak State rose to the level of a 1-year ban. So a lot of me is happy that Oak State is involved still in the possibility of playing in the postseason. It appears, we're 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday, so it's not a guarantee, but it's pretty much trending toward the idea that Oak State will be available to be selected on Selection Sunday, if indeed they haven't already earned an automatic bid. That I think they'll be in the tournament, and I'm happy about that because I don't think that the penalty was in relation to what happened. I didn't think that was a fair deal. So it may seem to the team that's 69th, so to speak, it won't feel great that Oak State will be allowed to go, but from someone who has observed NCAA justice and all of that, don't say that, Kev. You're still on the right side of that line. At least for,
maybe we'll see.
Another month or so, they're still on the right side of the line. So, but I'm sure that whoever does end up in that spot is going to feel aggrieved because Oak State looks like they'll be able to play.
Well, the good thing is we're going to be able to talk to you about it because you are Mr. Bracketology. So we're going to find out who are you kicking out to put them in. So can't wait to have that discussion. Mike, anything? What are you working on that the people need to know about to go read? There's always something there at whether it's with the Sporting News or wherever. You need to make sure you're following his bracketology on Fox as well.
Yes, I'll be on Fox tonight on a post-game show tonight around 10:45, I believe. I'll be on Saturday on BTN on our pregame show, which I believe is at 5 Eastern. And sportingnews.com, I wrote a column coming off of the bracket reveal on Saturday that's still up there. I tweeted it yesterday about what the committee seems to have valued in establishing the top 16 seeds. And hint, it's spelled N-E-T. I do believe that the net rankings were very much foremost in their minds when they were establishing which teams to place on those top four seed lines in each region.
That's something that we'll get into a little more next week because I'm looking forward to that. The Big 12 is as strong or possibly stronger at the top than the Big 10, but the Big 10's got 3 teams in the top 5. It's those 2 conferences at the top are just, boy, you talk about fist fights. Man, that's going to be some fun stuff to watch, I think. Woo! Looking forward to it. The great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, the Big Ten Network, and Fox. Make sure you catch him at Fox tonight after the game, like you said, 10:45. BTN on Saturday, and, of course, always at the Sporting News. Mike, cannot ever thank you enough.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kev.
The great Mike DeCourcy joining us here, and we've got a lot more to get to and plenty to talk about. Chronic Hoosier will join us later, and we'll get to talk more about those things we just talked about there. With that Oklahoma State situation, yeah, you seem to get a good laugh out of that because that is funny. I mean, somebody's going to get pinched and not make it, and man, whoo, that's going to really aggravate. Depending on who that is, but especially we're talking bubble teams there. We'll talk about that. Let's talk about bubble teams when we come back and who may have a shot to get in. But we got plenty more to get to. Chronic Hoosier is going to be with us as well. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, although it looks like a ski club today. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. They've got a 0% sales event going on right now. That has never happened with Honda. You can get 0% APR financing. Got more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Indiana Sports Beat back right after this.
Welcome to your extra.
Do you want Chronic on this segment or the next segment?
Oh, absolutely. Next segment.
Okay.
Or it doesn't matter. He's a big talker. We're not going to be back until 50.
If you got him on now, he'd get like 10 minutes of time on air. And then if you got on at 10, he'd get 15, 20 maybe.
So I just looked up Indiana's net right now is 50.
Go ahead and get him now, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim.
Yeah, the thing is, what it is now is not the issue. It's what is it going to be after they lose at Purdue, after they lose to Michigan?
Well, right now they're 2-8 v quad 1, which is not good, but they're 5-0 v quad 2. So
okay, so that would be 2-8. So it'll be 2-9, 2-10. But Rutgers would be a quad 1, right?
If they could beat them, yeah.
Minnesota?
Borderline quad 1 or quad 2.
So their only opportunity, I think, for a quad 1 win is Rutgers. They're not beating Michigan or Purdue. So then you're going to be 2-10 at best. And if you beat Rutgers, you're 3-10. Yeah. 3-10 in quad 1 wins. That's not going to.
You might have an opportunity for a quad 1 win in the Big Ten tournament also. Yeah, you might have an opportunity for a quad 1 in the Big Ten tournament.
You'd have to win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament at least.
No, maybe 1, because if you're like an 8 or a 9, then you'd face the 1. Yeah.
They're not going to be an 8 or a 9 after they lose.
Michigan State.
I got Chronic on, guys.
And Maryland, Michigan State, Maryland, Penn State. They're not going to be they could easily be a Thursday team this year as opposed to last.
What's up, Chronic?
What's going on?
You at home?
No, we are essential workers. Come rain or snow or whatever other bullshit.
Yeah, I figured. I saw you out there shoveling. No, what was you doing yesterday? Shoveling, or what was you doing? I saw a picture. Wasn't that you? I saw a picture.
Yeah, we had to get them all cleared off, so we get to go out and do it all over again as soon as this morning training session's done here today.
Yeah, I did some shoveling yesterday early in the afternoon and came back in and went back out for something. And there was already a half an inch. I'm like, I don't even know how much more is out there now, but.
I taught the boy how to work the snow blower yesterday. I have officially turned over the household detail.
You got a snow blower?
Yeah, my father-in-law, he had two of them. He traded the good one to his neighbor to bring down my bedroom set that he made.
More selection, more savings.
In his trailer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Gave me a little one.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. All right, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on these snowy day. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. 0% sales event going on right now. That's never happened before. You can get 0% APR financing. Get more to your door at andymorehonda.com. And we are welcoming Chronic Hoosier. Chronic, how are you, brother?
It's a slip sliding kind of day, but it's definitely wintertime in Indiana, man. Enjoying it while we got it.
It's enough time. The game is tomorrow. There's no fans anyway, so there should not be any issues with that. Minnesota, by Big Ten rules, has to be here a day in advance, so that's not going to be an issue. It's just going to be cold as hell and a late tip on top of that. Of all the times to have a 9 o'clock tip, man, this is not the one that we need to have.
No, it's not my favorite time. I put it right up there with the noon tips. It just kind of messes your whole day up. Either gets you up too early or keeps you up too late. The thing I'm looking at though is with campus being kind of frozen in right now, you always worry about those games where maybe everybody's heads aren't in it right now. Focus is a little off with everything else going on. But we have to look at it as well. This is one of those games that's probably going to play a real heavy factor in whether or not Indiana gets their invite to the Big Dance here.
Yeah, I've been looking at the schedule a lot, but because it's not just Indiana's schedule that you had to look at, and I was looking at so many schedules. I sent a tweet out that I actually had something wrong about who was playing who at home. They actually have Michigan State on the road, not Michigan, and I had those reversed because I was wondering if the Big Ten is going to try to make up any of these games on the Nebraska schedule. I've noticed they're having a makeup where they're playing somebody on back-to-back days. And as I looked at Indiana's schedule, the Michigan State game is hard to duplicate that one, but there's enough time to do that with the Michigan game, and that happens to be at home. I don't know if the Big Ten will do that. If things are left the same, then Indiana has just simply games remaining at home against Minnesota tomorrow night. And then with Michigan State on Saturday, 2 games that they probably have to win, to be honest with you. Well, absolutely, they have to win those 2. But I'm wondering, Chronic, if the Rutgers game is going to be the tilter in this, because you've got 5 games left. Can they get away with just winning 2 of those, or do they have to win 3 of those games to get in?
Well, Indiana's currently sitting in 8th place in the Big Ten right now. Rutgers in 7th, Minnesota in 9th, Michigan State in 11th. So this is one of those where you separate the wheat from the chaff. And obviously we're battling for contention in the middle part of the conference, the lower middle part of the conference. But, with the league projected to get somewhere between, I've seen projections as low as 7, as high as 10. I don't know that I feel the 10, but probably somewhere right there in the middle. These are exactly the games you have to win because these are exactly the opponents that are going to be vying for the same spots. Now, I don't think Sparty's got much of a shot. But, Minnesota very much in the hunt. Rutgers very much in the hunt. You have to take care of those games if you want to retain any semblance of hope for a postseason invitation. And more than anything, it's just more win opportunities. I don't care if you're playing the worst team in the league or the best team in the league. Right now, Indiana needs some wins. in the win column in a bad way. And if you can get those against teams that are trying to take that ticket to the dance at the same time, more power on you. And then you've still got Purdue, you've still got Michigan in the works, where you've still got a chance to make a good statement win before the season winds down. Because quite frankly, I'm not looking at the Big Ten tournament as a viable path for Indiana to solidify its bid. There's so much uncertainty right now. It still remains so much uncertainty from day to day with COVID and everything else. You just cannot bank on those games being on the calendar. You got to take care of your business during the regular season, because even those aren't a given. Quite frankly, every game they tip off is a blessing once they actually get it up in the air. So you got to focus on the next game, and you just can't afford to slip anymore. And quite frankly, you need to get that taste out of your mouth after the Ohio State loss, because the one thing that stands out after that is, there's a pretty big gap right now between Indiana and the best teams in the conference. No matter what we saw against Iowa, that's certainly a favorable matchup for the Hoosiers. But when you play a team like Ohio State, and when you've got a team like Michigan on the schedule up ahead too, those boys are tough. They're really, really tough right now. And Indiana's got a pretty good distance to go in order to get on that level. So you take the low-hanging fruit where you can get them, but quite frankly, also recognizing there are no gimme games in the Big Ten. Indiana saw that full well against Nebraska. You got to show up every single night like your tournament life depends on it, because quite frankly, it probably does at this point in the season.
Yeah, Indiana's end of season schedule. I'm wondering. I'm counting the teams. I'm wondering. I'm certain that there are nine teams from the Big Ten will get in without question. Can the Big Ten get 10 teams in? And for that to happen, I think for Indiana to get in, they're going to have to be that 10th team. Maryland is sitting at the bottom. They're actually under Indiana right now, but if you look at the games they have left, it's against the complete bottom of the Big Ten, the Nebraskas, Northwesterns, Penn States. It's unbelievable how their end of season schedule lays out for them. I would be shocked if they don't make it in just because of that alone. Indiana, on the other hand, has all these tough games that we're talking about. If they can get through that, the Big Ten will end up with 10 teams in the tournament this year. That's mind-boggling.
No, it's just been an absolute meat grinder of a league. There's no doubt. Every year we talk about just how good it is, and every year it seems like there's a legitimate conversation. Is this the best the league's ever been? And with the exception of the very, very bottom end of it, there's like I said, there's no team that you can take a night off on right now. It's just absolutely brutal, and it's not just that it's tough. It's there's so many different ways that the teams can beat you, the teams can score on you. Indiana has really struggled against the teams that want to play physical against us for a number of reasons, and we still got a couple of those left on the schedule as well. So it's a great chance for them to state their case, to really solidify their resume, and quite frankly, just kind of get some mojo back, because it feels like, every time something good for Indiana happens, there's a tremendous letdown that kind of takes the wind out of their sails. And you've got to get some momentum. You've got to get things going downhill for yourselves as the calendar starts rounding into March, when stuff matters. And, I know a lot of folks are looking at this. What's the big deal? Whether we get in, whether we don't. Indiana hasn't shown a whole lot that they're going to be capable of a lot of upsets thus far. It's easy to say that now, but people forget just how much can happen over the course of a couple of weeks. It's not always who you are in the middle of February. It's what type of a team are you, come the second week of March. And Indiana's still got a lot of distance to travel between now and then to figure out just what type of team it wants to be, what this team's legacy is going to be. I'm not expecting anything earth-shattering, but we've certainly seen a number of glimpses of what this team is capable of when they're playing connected, when the offense is working, when the defense is dialed in. And you've got to get some baseline consistency established, something that you can fall back on no matter what's going on in the game. That's going to hold true from opponent to opponent. And as an Indiana fan, I'm really looking forward to seeing something along those lines here as they finish up the regular season.
We'll certainly get the opportunity, and it starts on Wednesday, a late one with a 9 o'clock tip, of course, as the Hoosiers take on Minnesota and Patino and those Gophers. Chronic, I can't thank you enough, man. Stay warm, stay out of the snow, and don't eat the yellow snow and all that good stuff, right?
No, man, you got to get in the snow. My kids, we've been joking for years. How many sledding days, if any, are we going to see on any given winter? So when you see Indiana fully acting like a Great Lakes state again, I was wondering on my way into work today, are you even really a Hoosier if you don't get sideways on at least a couple of curves as you're going through your morning commute? Go have fun in it, man. Go enjoy the light stuff while we
Find a toboggan hill somewhere, do that, or find something on Brown County, right?
We got plenty of those around here.
Slope to it.
Wilmington's got two great ones over in Southeast Park. They got one over at Tri North, but the Tri North one, you got to be really careful because it dumps right into 17th Street. So I recommend Southeast Park.
Chronic, thanks, brother. You go out and have a great day.
Hey, thanks for having me. Be well, guys.
Thanks.
Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. That would not be good to dump you out on 17th Street there. That would be fun. Hey, we'll be back with plenty more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. 0% sales event there, and more to your door, AndyMooreHonda.com. We're back with more right after this.
Yep.
Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. The Big Ten has 3 in the top 5 for the first time ever.
Yeah.
In the AP poll. They had 3 in the top 6 in 1987. Purdue was 3rd, which shocks me that Purdue was that good in 87. Indiana was number 4, and Iowa was number 6. Of course, Indiana would go on to win the national championship that year. So Indiana won a national championship, or the Big Ten won a national championship the last time they had 3 teams ranked that high.
Hey, did you see that special on the Big Ten Network that they're doing about the 85 international trip?
I did not yet.
Oh, yeah, no, they're advertising, and I think it's going to come out at the end. They're doing like a documentary on it. But did you know any guys from that 85? I was thinking about doing a little story on it. Did you know any guys from that 85 team or no?
Well, I mean, I'm sure because, see.
I mean, I would say Alford, but I mean, it'd be tough to bug him.
After who's some of the names? I'd have to pull the rosters up.
But I saw that they interviewed Bob Hamill also, and I was thinking about giving him a call because I have his email. I could call him also because I guess
he's the authority. I mean, he was still editor of the Herald then.
Yeah, and I think he went on that trip, or he must have done a story or something.
Oh, I'm sure he was Knight's best buddy.
Yeah. Anyway, it'd be interesting.
I want to have this discussion, but it's not relevant right now. But
what?
Because it's relevant. It's because it's related to coaching. Is this IU guy thing? I keep seeing that all over. Oh, you gotta get an IU guy.
That's Dockich is drumming that up because he's.
I know.
Job, yeah.
Because why?
Because he's jealous he didn't get the job.
Oh, you think that?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. He's got a big ego. Maybe if he drew up a better inbounds play at the end of that Minnesota game in the Big Ten tournament, he'd have the job.
Don't forget we're on live on YouTube.
That's fine. If he hears it, that's fine.
Yeah.
He's taken plenty of shots at me over the years,
He will move in media.
Yeah. That's right.
What was I talking about?
But the Indiana guy, but
yeah, here my take on, and we'll talk about it on the air at some point. But yeah. I'm so done. I'm like, that just makes no sense to me. I promise you, anybody that comes here that is a good coach, they're going to become. You become a part of that program if you create a program. That's what Bob Knight did exactly. He's not from here. He didn't even come to here from where he's from. Came from someplace else even. It's
on your next visit to French Lick, West Bay.
Why would you want to hire like Fife? Why? Where is he successfully?
This segment is brought to you by.
I want a coach that's a winner now.
Pizza, burgers, beer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you're in the southern part of the state, you probably get a little ice, baby. It's a little snowy. We're up to the north, further you north go. Welcome back to the ski club at Eagle Point Studios here on this snowy and cold Tuesday, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Freshman year at the University of Miami, I was rocking the Vanilla Ice look. I had the cubic zirconium in the year. I thought it was.
I could have gone without that visual. I could have gone without that visual all day.
Oh, it was the worst.
I can see you doing karaoke dressed as Vanilla Ice. I can see that plain as day.
Yeah,
easy, rocking
it
out.
He's a poser. He's from Plano, Texas. He's not even from South Florida. Come
on. We'll just talk about the Big Ten. They're getting a ton of teams in the tournament this year. They're getting a 9 for certain.
You think, though? I mean, I'm looking at but what amazes me is when I look at the net, for example, and I see that, Penn State, after losing to Nebraska, somehow is still 39. I mean,
they're not a team that I'm even considering that they make it.
But, why are they 39 in the net then? And they're saying, why is
because of who they play. Because of who they play. I don't know how the net is, all the things about it, because there's a lot of questions about that net. But that net is very, very important. What's Indiana's, did you say, right now, 50?
Yeah. Indiana's 50. They're 2-8 against quad 1. That's the problem.
They're perilous.
Against quad 2, yeah.
Yeah, but that's great against a lesser. You're good against lesser talent, is what they're saying.
Well, quad 1 and quad 2, a lot of time the selection committee takes into account both. So if you're 7-8 against quad 2, quad 1 and quad 2, you're close to 500 against those teams, which will give Indiana a little bit of weight. The fact that now if you're 2-8 against quad 1 and 2-8 against quad 2, then it's really bad. But 2-8 against quad 1 and 5-0 against quad 2. I think just puts. I think right now they're just on the bubble. I mean, they're a 10-11 seed right now. But as I've said before, you got to get to 10 conference wins, and I don't know how you're going to do it at this point at 6 and 7 unless you beat Michigan State twice, you take care of business against Minnesota, a team that struggles on the road, and
you think Indiana has to get to 10 conference wins?
Yeah, yep.
I think
I don't. 10 conference wins. You think that they could go at 9-11?
Yeah, in the Big Ten conference, hell yes.
Puts them at 14 and 13 overall.
As long as they have a winning record,
they're
fine.
Okay.
And as long as they're within 2 games of 500 in the Big Ten, I think they're fine because of the strength of.
DeCourcy was saying last week that 1 game over 500, he doesn't think it's going to be enough.
Your overall record?
Yeah.
I disagree. If you play in the Big Ten, I disagree with that.
So you think 9-11? I mean, 9-11 would have got him in last year, actually, but you play more.
And this is a tougher year. This is a tougher year. I think that Indiana has a direct path, but it involves they cannot lose this game tonight.
Yeah,
this to me, or tomorrow night. Yeah, because I'm expecting the Michigan State game to be a win.
Yeah,
I'm expecting. Where'd my daggone schedule go? I'm expecting then you have to beat Rutgers. So you expect the Michigan State, we're marking that down as a win. They have to beat Minnesota and have to beat Rutgers.
Okay. What if they
have to beat both of those teams, I think.
No, what if they don't beat
one of those two?
What if they don't beat Rutgers and don't beat Purdue and they beat Michigan State twice and Minnesota? Is that enough at 9-11 to get in?
I don't know that they're going to get Michigan State twice.
They get them on the road if they make up the game, which
I don't know that there's enough time, but there's enough time to make up the Michigan game. What if they have to play Michigan twice instead and lose twice to Michigan?
Well, they're going to try to make up all the games, and if they do that, then they got Michigan State twice.
Then you also have Michigan twice.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if you get
those could be bad. What if those are bad losses, kind of like the Ohio State loss?
They don't really take into account margin of victory. They take into account victory. I mean, they take into account a little bit of metrics and Ken Palm, I guess, but not to the extent where I think mainly the committee just looks at who you beat, who you lose to. So 9-11 with 2 wins against Michigan State and a win against Minnesota, is that enough? Oh, but you don't get the quality wins. I kind of agree with you. If you go 9-11, you probably have to beat Rutgers or Purdue.
Well, that also you have to get into the Big Ten tournament and win you might have to win a game in the Big. Well,
14-13. I mean, don't forget you've got the Stanford Butler. Butler's not having a great year in the Big East, right? But you got Stanford and Providence in the non-conference also. You got those.
Yeah, it's just, but you've got to have a winning record overall. I mean, they cannot have a losing record. So we'll see. It'll play itself out.
I think 10-10 gets them solidly in. So if you can find a way to win 4 conference games, or maybe you upset Michigan at home, you catch them on a bad night, I think that would be really.
Well, that's automatic. You do it if you do that changes a lot. But that's not going to happen.
But say if you beat Michigan at home and you're 8-12,
that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. They're not going to beat a good team. They only beat Iowa because it was the reason they beat Iowa. Iowa scores 90 points a game. Indiana milks the shot clock every possession. They're down to 5-4, and Iowa could just not get out and do what they do, and it inadvertently took Iowa completely out of their game, and it does is give people the blueprint on how to beat Iowa. You slow them down, and man, it just discombobulates them. If they're not running, man, they're not good.
It's not, and it's also, I think with Iowa also, it's it's a good matchup for Indiana. Soft zone, they don't put pressure on the guards. It's a lot easier.
They don't play much defense.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for Indiana to execute offense against that type of a team versus a team that's in your grill like Ohio State that turned them over 15 times. I think that's another issue too with regards to that with Iowa.
And Michigan is going to get out and they're going to push the issue every which way. They're going to be getting up and down the floor, and your transition defense better be strong because they're going to put you to the test. But that's a few weeks away. Minnesota's what's coming up next for Indiana. It's a winnable game. It's at home, and like I said, it's a must-win game. You have to win this, or if you lose this game, you put yourself really in a corner going forward. That makes the Rutgers an absolute must-win game. Oh, Michigan State even. Of course, I'm expecting that as a win, but that would turn that in. But Minnesota is a team that Indiana that I think does match up well with. And this is a game that if Indiana's going to win, this is the game that they need to pull out, because this is probably between Rutgers and Minnesota. Minnesota, obviously, I think a team that Indiana has more advantages over.
Yeah, and Minnesota 0-7 on the road. They're a terrible road team. Not that Indiana has been great in Assembly Hall this year, but Minnesota has been bad on the road. So, yeah, you got to take advantage of this. And, listen, one of the keys, and Rob Finney did a pretty good job on Marcus Carr last year. You got to have that kind of performance defensively. He has got to at least step up on the defensive end. He hasn't given you much offense, but you need him in there. And that'll be interesting to see because, Christian Lander – certainly giving you a little more in terms of his offense and his court vision, but this might be a game where you may have to revert to Finney for major minutes just because you really need that defense. And Lander won't give you that kind of defense against a guy like Marcus Carr. And don't forget the Iowa win on the road, which is arguably Indiana's best win of the season. I mean, the key to that game was Finney on Bohannon. That was really the key. Frustrating him into bad shots and him going 0-8 from the field. Archie said after the game that was probably his best on-ball defense performance. So you're going to need that from Finney. I mean, the only problem with Rob is he's just in a total funk offensively and totally lost, confidence-wise on that end of the floor.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of Justin Smith being the hero against Michigan State a couple of years ago. Something that he was never good at, being the hero, but Indiana were knocking off a better team then. So it's kind of odd that again someone steps up that hasn't been doing so far this year. Indiana, we're going to talk about when we come back, those slow starts Archie Miller talked about in his radio show last night. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, where they're having a 0% sales event right now. You can get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com. We're back right after this.
Honda Bloomington.
Archie talks about all the slow starts, okay, but he absolutely refuses
to change anything.
Did you see beyond the
anything? And I don't understand how your philosophy can be that no matter what is going on in the game, no matter what is happening at the end of a half, whether a particular rotation or a particular individual is riding a hot hand, there is no way that possibly inserting them into the halftime lineup to give a whatever burst, a spark. Why not ever try that, and to absolutely refuse to ever give that a try is beyond mind-boggling to me. He is married to a script like you can't believe. I mean, they have a script and they follow it. It doesn't matter what happens in the game. That's why when we're seeing all this stuff that is blowing our minds, why are they not doing this? Why did they do that? Why did he take Hunter out at this time? Well, it was on the script. It doesn't matter what's going on the floor. It's on the script. I'm telling you. I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember back in 2003 in the NBA Finals, I'm a Nets fan, and I remember they had Kerry Kittles was like on a roll in the second half, but Byron Scott always brought in Lucius Harris at a certain time, and he just hit like 3 threes in a row. And I was thinking the same thing with Jerome Hunter, how coaches they can be stubborn that way. But why not, and we can talk about this on the air, why not change the starting lineup too?
Oh, I have, and I will. Right now we will.
I put that up and beyond the arc. Like, why not give maybe?
I'll tell you what my opinion is right now, because I don't think he has the ability to. I don't think he knows what to do. He follows a script. I mean, I don't want to get into this. I'm sick and tired of talking about Archie. I really am, because there's nothing good to say about Archie. There really isn't. There is not a damn good thing to say about him, and and certainly not a damn good thing to say about his coaching or lack thereof. But I think he doesn't know what to do. When you follow a script that adherently and it's not working, I think Einstein said something about that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well,
I get talking about him, I get all jacked up.
He sacrifices defense for offense, because, if
how's that working in the Big Ten?
Yeah, no, you gotta eventually score. You gotta eventually put the ball in the basket. See, I know Jerome Hunter.
So now you have a guy who is a defensive coach only, and running a system that just does
and
not
a premier
will not
resort
work in the Big
experience
Ten.
that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick West.
They got real athletes here.
Yeah.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Summer's never been further away right now with about, I don't know how many inches of snow we got on the ground here. It's colder than you know where. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club, Eagle Point Studios. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me as always on this day.
School's out for winter.
What's that?
I said school's out for winter, not for summer.
Well, you know what sucks for kids today? School's never really out now. Yeah. We didn't have that e-learning crap when I was a kid, baby. We got real snow days, snow days, and we had so many one time that they couldn't even make us make them up. It was so awesome. Yeah. But yeah, there's no more snow days, man. That would suck to be a student now, man. There was nothing greater than a snow day when you were in high school. Welcome back. Slow starts for Indiana. Archie talked about that on his show last night. Says his team is not a confident starter on offense. It's very concerning. Well, hell yeah, it's concerning. Wow, finally concerning to him, and with 5 games to go in the fourth year.
He talked about after the Ohio State game too. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Archie. So with 6 games to go in the 4th year. Says the Northwestern and Ohio State game started with the inability to connect on offense. Says his team has fought back well, but getting down, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Okay. The basic question here is, and that everybody on the planet that watches Indiana asks, but I'd sure like to know. I know that there are philosophies that coaches follow, and you have to stick to a lot of certain things. But there is no coach in the history of the world that is married to
to one thing and one thing only, because you can't be for several reasons. Number one, the teams you're playing just don't always cooperate, and you have to adjust to that. Number two, you have different personnel that may not always be able to run what you are wanting to run. You have to adjust to that. There's just so many reasons sometimes you have to adjust. Those adjustments are not made here. This is a scripted team. Everything is scripted. That's why when you see Jerome Hunter on a heater against Ohio State and you see him get taken out and you're like, what the hell? It's because it's part of the script.
Yep.
That's when you see a rotation that's on a run at the end of a half and they come out with the same starting lineup that got off to that same slow start instead of that rotation that was on a heater at the end. That's because that's on the script that Archie just refuses to deviate from. Absolutely refuses to deviate from. And to me, I think it's an inability to do so. Doesn't know what he's fearful, but who cares? What, this is not working. So why not take a chance? I can't answer why. I would like to see Jerome. I've talked about Christian Lander. How about Jerome Hunter? How about sticking him in at a half for something different? Just something different. Hell, to fool the other team, if nothing else. But it's. Sure. I think it's just because it is such a scripted thing that it relies only solely on this pack line defense, and when it goes wrong, doesn't know what to do. And I don't know that they're paying attention to what is actually going on the floor, on who's playing well. It's part of the script, who goes in when, who comes out when. It doesn't matter who's doing what. And that is just mind-boggling. That is not coaching. That is not paying attention. That's not adjusting. And I think it has been going on for 4 years. And maybe I'm wrong.
Well, let's talk about starting lineups because, when you talk about you talk about the players that you have on the floor, and do you consider changing the starting lineup at this point? At this point in the season, we saw like a mild tweak a couple of weeks ago with Trey Galloway. But should you? I mean, I think at this point, it's pretty apparent that players on the court at start a game is not working. You're not getting off to good starts because
didn't Galloway start because of an injury?
Maybe because you're not having your best. Well, Finney was struggling. No, they took out Finney.
He's still struggling.
He
hasn't stopped struggling.
But why not consider Jerome Hunter to start and have a little more size to start the game?
Because he's not on the script.
He's out of the doghouse now, and I think he's a guy that. He's got some upside, certainly offensively. I think he's improved a little bit defensively. And when I was thinking about this, I first thought at the beginning, maybe you want Hunter as that third post guy in the rotation because Brunk is out. But now you have Jordan Geronimo, and I think Jordan Geronimo has established himself as a guy that could be that third player in the three-post rotation now. So why not start a guy like Jerome Hunter that can maybe give you a little more offense in the beginning of the game and then either bring Durham or Finney off the bench?
There's a ton of options. We can talk about all the options, all that we want. We can talk about that. I know Christian Lander is still struggling with defensively. I don't care. Start him, play him 3 damn minutes like you have been all year. Play him 3 minutes and pull him out just to start the game, just for a spark, just to do something different, just to maybe not get off to that slow start. I don't know. Hell, maybe not do what hasn't worked, but it's not going to change. I can tell you right now, it is not going to change. Yeah. It's not part of the script. It is everything. It is done. This has got to be done here, here, and here. When? And what is happening is irrelevant. And I think this team cannot succeed if you don't take advantage of things that are happening at the time. If you don't make an adjustment to gain an advantage, then you've wasted it and you've lost it because I promise you, your competitor is doing that. They are working to put you at a disadvantage the entire time you're playing. And I think Archie allows his teams to be put at disadvantages too often and does not respond to that.
Well, if you remember, too, if you go back all the way to non-conference at Stanford, when Trace starts the game on fire, then you get off to good starts, too. There's got to be a responsibility.
How often does that happen?
he has not done it lately, and he's been, kind of a little bit of a nervous Nelly in the beginning of games or trying to figure things out, and then he kind of
bring him up. Hey, you know what? Bring him off the bench. Bring him off the bench. Change something. I'm not saying that he sits for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's 1 minute. Bring him, do something different. Break the routine. Let him sit there and watch the game start. Maybe that changes his perspective for 2 minutes. Maybe actually watching that game start for 2 minutes without him does something, triggers something. I'm just saying, try something.
Maybe and maybe it motivates him to get off to get better starts too.
That's my whole point.
You're
maybe not going to get killed. You're not going to get what worse can happen that is not already happening.
Yeah,
you're already getting killed.
Yeah,
with what you think is working, it's not. So why not? Why not try to do something about it? Other than what you continue to try to do, which for 4 stinking years has not worked. I don't have the answer to that. Oh, well, I have an opinion, but not an answer.
Yeah, no, I think it's like I said, I think it's interesting to see. We get Archie at 2, and maybe we ask him if we can get a question in the queue, right? Would you consider a change? You know what I mean? Or would you?
Or why don't you consider? That's a better change. Why don't you consider ever deviating from what seems to be scripted lineups, no matter what is going on the court of play? That's if I can get that question in, I promise you, I'm going to ask it.
Yeah, no question, because it's at this point now you got to wonder if there's a personnel element to this too, as well as an execution element. But you got to wonder also if maybe changing things up, having different players on the floor to start the game would help spark things a little bit and get you off to a little bit of a better start at this point in the season.
Tim hit the Andy Moore hotline, says IU beats Purdue. How much money are you putting on that one, Tim? Ryan says this is Michigan today. Oh, he's talking about the snow. Yeah, they got tons of snow up there. Yep, thanks, Ryan. They have tons of snow here as well. But it is what it is, and I just don't. I think what you see is what you're going to get. So just prepare for that. That's just something. Ace hits us up on the hotline too, says Archie won't change the lineup, at least play the freshman more minutes. That's something else I was screaming about against that in the Ohio State game. You got 7 minutes to go in that game. They were clearly out. They had thoroughly kicked their behinds out the door. They were done. I'm screaming, put in the freshman. Let them play now. Get a ton of minutes. Would they have probably gotten beaten a little worse? Yeah, maybe. But is that your concern, or is developing your team a concern? You're already getting beat. There was 5 minutes to go, and the starting lineup was still in. What are you getting from that? Nothing.
Yeah, did we see Anthony Leal in that game? I don't think he made an appearance today.
I think he was in, but not for much.
A couple of minutes. Long,
couple of minutes. That's my whole point. You got nothing out of that game. Archie wasted those last 7 minutes for damn sure. That was infuriating, not getting those guys the minutes they need, especially down this stretch. He's going to need him in this game. He's going to need him in that Rutgers game. He's going to need him in that Michigan State game.
You got a 10-player rotation now because Hunter is back, and he's been back a couple of games. And I think you want to give Hunter a little run because it was his hometown. And Hunter played well in the first half, but didn't carry over the second half of that game. He had that bad technical foul, if you remember, and it was just not one thing; it's another with this team, right?
Jennifer in Evansville hit us up on the Andy Moore hotline too. Says, "What do you think of Juwan Howard's coaching? Is this a lucky season, or is he legit?" That's legit, man. It's recruiting, it's coaching, but he also was smart enough not to be arrogant to think that he's going to come into the Big Ten and be the guy. So you know what he did? He goes out and hires Phil Martelli. How long has Phil Martelli been coaching, Kevin?
Oh, yeah, 25 years. Yeah, remember when I asked him last year.
This guy was a winner. He's a veteran. He's smart, see? Juwan Howard's smart. Said, hey, I'm going to get somebody as a veteran. Not yes men,
Juwan Howard called him the Godfather. I remember when I asked him about Martelli. But hey, Michigan beat Indiana by 24 last year up in Ann Arbor. I mean, this is 2 years in a row now that Juwan Howard is doing this, and he's got a heck of a recruiting class coming in. I think Michigan is going to be solid for a while with him as coach.
Absolutely. There are a lot of teams in the Big Ten are actually looking better now, too. Hey, we're about to close it out. It's been another fun one. I wish we could actually go on all day since there's not a whole hell of a lot else to do. What is your day going to entail? I'm sure some writing.
We're going to do some writing, and maybe I'll sneak out to Kroger and get some wings and try to get out in the snow and clear my car off a little bit. But hopefully, I won't be sledding down 2nd Street. I'll be careful driving.
Well, I'm thinking about maybe playing some golf today. No, I'm just kidding. But it's I have no plans to go anywhere that I know of. But we have a game tomorrow.
Ice fishing on Lake Monroe, right? Get out there.
Well, yeah, we can try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm good. That's why I don't live in Canada. If I wanted to do that, I'd be up there. Hey, man, I cannot thank everybody enough. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy, as always, from the Big Ten Network, Fox, and the Sporting News. You can catch him tonight on Fox, Chronic Hoosier as well. And, of course, Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. Follow him at those papers. You can follow us, too, at YouTube, the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Subscribe, go there. You got After the Game with Todd Leary, all there. All the shows are there as well. And you can also follow me on Twitter as well, at Jim Coyle ISB. But thank everybody for a great day. Go out and do something nice. Wear your mask. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Yeah.